Welcome to Your College Bound Kid,
a podcast for parents, college counselors, students, and anyone who wants a weekly deep dive into the world of college admissions.
My name is Linda, and I'm originally from Michigan, now living in the St. Louis metro area. I'm a college coach with School Match for You and have a daughter at University of Chicago.
I'm Lisa, and I'm a clinical psychologist and college counselor. I have a daughter in college, a daughter in high school, and a son in middle school. After 30 years in Chicago, we recently moved to North Carolina.
My name is Mark. I'm a college coach in Atlanta and the parent of two daughters. Karis, a graduate of Davidson College, and she is the founder of the Spanish tutoring company, SpanishHelpToday.com. And Joy is a wellness coach at Canaan Flagler Business School at the University of North Carolina in Chapel Hill. And I'm so blessed to be able to work alongside both my beautiful daughters at School Match for You, college counseling firm that I founded in 2010. Friends, happy Memorial Day. I hope you're having some great time with friends and family today. I'm looking forward to firing up the grill and barbecuing. We have company from Cincinnati coming, and I'm excited to share Memorial Day with them. On today's episode, I'm going to address an issue a podcast listener from Virginia asked me to address. When Trump tried to ban international students from attending Harvard, a podcast listener sent me a text that said, "Time for an emergency podcast," with a link to the article. And the timing was actually really good because my mind was vacillating like a ping pong match. Part of me was saying, you've talked about Harvard and Trump quite a bit on the podcast lately. Are you going to cover every move like a chess match? I mean, there are many other things to cover. But another part of me said, I don't want to be like the proverbial frog in the kettle whose senses are so inured that I normalize something so egregious by not even discussing it. So when that text came in, my mind was made up. I have to address this. I'm also going to share a conversation I had in the counseling room in the last couple of weeks. It was with the family from Orange County, California, who's given me permission to share the story. I will share this story first and then address the Harvard debacle. Finally, we have part 1 of 2 of Dr. John Pollard's overview of an explanation of Franke's Honors College. That is the University of Arizona's Honors College. I think when you listen to this interview, you will see why I feel honors colleges and public honors colleges are the best value for your money. Now, they aren't for everyone, but they are an incredible opportunity for so many. And Franke's absolutely one of the great honors colleges in this country. And we plan on bringing you more interviews with deans of honors colleges across the country. I've been heartened by 3 different texts and or emails I received from families telling me that after listening to Dr. John Pollard discuss the University of Arizona, the listeners told me they are now seriously considering U of A. But wait until you hear about all the benefits of attending Franke. I am so excited about this interview. I actually almost ran it as a standalone interview for its full impact and make it an entire episode. But there's so much content in here. I actually think it's better just so you can digest it, playing it over 2 weeks. So you'll hear part 1 today. All right, let's dive in. So a mom who I love working with, I feel like she shares the values I believe in, and I love how she's raised her kids. I worked with her older daughter, and her older daughter actually toured me at UC Irvine when I was there in September. Now, this mom asked for details of my California trip when I was there. She sent me all the best restaurants throughout the whole state to eat in. And I shared these details just because I want you to see this is a mom who's kind, thoughtful, and considerate. She's grounded her kids really well. She's never put any pressure on either of them to go to Designer U. For her, college is all about finding the right fit and match for each student and letting them achieve and reach their full potential. And I respect her values highly because I know the mentality that exists in their Orange County town they live in and is very different from her values. So the mom schedules a parent session with me to talk about something that is concerning to her. They just got back from 2 admitted student visit days, one at UW, University of Washington, and one at the University of Oregon. She loved them both, but she was head over heels about the University of Oregon. But as much as she loved University of Oregon, she was having misgivings. The mom told me a story that her daughter had with one of her best friends. And the reason she knows the story is because Her daughter told her the story. So the student is telling her best friend about how Oregon blew her away, but still she has some reluctance about committing. And her friend says to her, I know why you have your incertitude. It's the high acceptance rate. That's why. When the mom is recounting the story, she says her daughter said to her, Mom, my friend called me out. She nailed it. Now, the context of the call is not the mom reinforcing selecting a college based on acceptance rate. In fact, it was the opposite. She said to me in the call, it was a Zoom call, as much as I have told her, and I know how many times you've told her not to base a decision on acceptance rate, here we are. Is it all going to come down to this? She asked me this question in a quizzical manner. Mom tells me the first thing her friends do when they learn about any new college, and I mean the very first thing, is Google the acceptance rate. So here's my question, friends. Has college become nothing more than a Gucci bag, Prada shoes, Cartier jewelry, a Rolex watch, or driving a Porsche or Ferrari? Is it all about style over substance? Whatever happened to the value of learning how to think critically? Whatever happened to the value of learning how to solve complex problems? Whatever happened to the value of learning how to communicate clearly and effectively? Whatever happened to the value of being exposed to diverse ideas, cultures, and disciplines? What about the value of broadening your worldview? What about the value of building lifelong friendships? What about the value of establishing future professional networks? And what about the value of being mentored by someone who can change your life? What about access to professors? Or access to resources like academic support, advising, tutoring, career centers, writing centers, disability centers, multicultural affairs? What about the value of high-impact experiences like study away or going on a transformational study abroad trip? What about the value of internships and co-ops, of research and unique service opportunities? What about studying at a place that is so exceptionally strong in the college major you're interested in? Here's the reality, friends. Some of the colleges that have some of the strongest majors in the countries are at schools with high acceptance rates. Or the value of getting into an honors college, which we'll talk about later today, at a school with a high acceptance rate, like U of A. Acceptance rates are a very flawed way of selecting a college. For one, they're extremely manipulated. I know a school that has, on paper, they admit 1 in 3, but they have a large international population for which they admit 2%, and their U.S. admit rate is in the 80s. I know another one that claims an admit rate in the 30s, but they give over $20,000 to anyone with a 2.75 GPA. Many colleges know students are selecting schools based on admit rates, so they do things like only admit students with high levels of engagement, even though they're still taking students with GPAs at 2.5. Or colleges target places where they can get large numbers of applications from populations that they can only accept a small number, driving down their admit rate. And we've talked about all the other strategies like taking 60, 70% in ED and forcing large numbers of people to apply in regular, driving down your admit rate. Let's look at the 52 QuestBridge partner schools. QuestBridge is the #1 provider of gifted and talented under-resourced students to highly selective colleges. It's a race-blind program that places approximately 2,500 students in 52 well-resourced selective colleges. Now, this 2,500 number is counting their match program, which is similar to like early decision, but you get to select up to 15 schools, but obviously you can only match with one, and also through the regular round. Colleges rave about QB, and they wish they could admit more QB students, but their budget oftentimes won't allow for it. But ask any one of the 52 QuestBridge schools how many QB applicants they get, and you'll hear numbers like 1,300, 2,800, for which their admit rate is often really low. I mean really low, like under 3%, therefore driving down their overall admit rate. Admit rates rarely include spring admits. Admit rates just isn't a reliable number for so many reasons and for so many people. You know, Hillary said something to me the other day when we were recording a question from a listener that you're going to hear, and we'll air that either in June or July. She relayed a conversation she was having with Matt, director of admissions at Colorado College, and where they both agreed, and I'm paraphrasing, you'll hear her exact words when she says what she says on the episode when it airs, but this is the essence of what she says. It is amazing how unselective a selective college can be. And I knew exactly what she meant when she said it, and I was so happy for her being so transparent with our listeners to say it. There are colleges with sky-high admit rates overall, but very low admit rates for certain majors, or high admit rates for certain hard-to-get demographics. Basing admission decisions on admit rates is highly suspect and flawed approach to decision-making. I've mentioned before Jensen Huang, the CEO of NVIDIA, which vacillates with Microsoft and Apple, all three of them as the most valuable company in the world, how he went to Oregon State, which admits over 85% of their applicants. You don't have to go to school at the low acceptance rate to crush it in the real world. Howard Schultz, Starbucks CEO 3 times, built Starbucks into a global brand with, last I checked, over 30,000 locations and growing fast. He went to Northern Michigan University. Look up their admit rate. Barbara Corcoran, real estate mogul, Shark Tank, graduated with a D average from St. Thomas Aquinas College in New York City. Look up their admit rate. Oprah Winfrey, Tennessee State University, most influential women in media and billionaire entrepreneur. Look up TSU's admit rate. Joe Biden, Chris Christie, David Plouffe, Obama's campaign manager, all graduated from University of Delaware. Look up their admit rate. Stephen King, arguably the most prolific author in history, went to University of Maine. Last I checked, their admit rate's over 95%. Doug McMillon, CEO of Walmart. He went to University of Arkansas, super high admit rate. Mary Barra, CEO of General Motors, went to Kettering University, formerly GMI. Now, my next interview is with Kettering, the president, and it's this outstanding school that flies under the radar, but it's not a brand designer name with a super low admit rate. Tim Cook, CEO of Apple, Auburn University. Darren Woods, CEO of ExxonMobil, Texas A&M. John Furner, former CEO of Sam's Club, University of Arkansas. Bill McDermott, CEO of ServiceNow, Fortune 100 company. He earned his bachelor's degree in business at Dowling College. Now, when I first read that, I'm like, I haven't even heard of Dowling College. Well, that's because it's closed, but it was a private institution that used to be on Long Island. He was the CEO before that at software giant SAP. Now, in fairness, a few of these folks I featured went to elite grad schools, but I'm talking about their undergraduate degree. Now, I don't mean to criticize high school students putting a lot of emphasis on acceptance rate. The fact is, we all clamor for and crave respect. In many suburban communities and well-resourced communities, if this is how people are conferring validation, then of course it's going to result in whatever earns them respect and validation from their peers. As parents, we're no different. Let's say you're coming up to your 25th reunion from your high school or college, doesn't matter. And let's say you're on your 4th marriage, you put on 100 pounds, you're unemployed, your kids are incarcerated. You're most likely going to take a pass on showing up because you don't feel you'll get validation. It's human nature. But I'm very concerned about the role peer pressure is playing on kids' self-confidence, self-image, and their physical and mental health. I asked Lisa if she could do a session for us on peer pressure, and she had a brilliant idea. She said, I'd love to interview some students on the podcast to actually listen to them and what they're going to face. So toward the end of the year, you're going to hear that interview. I think it's going to be really enlightening. All right, let's transition. Let me address the question the listener from Virginia asked me to address. This week, the Trump administration revoked Harvard's certification under the Student and Exchange Visitor Program, SCVP. It effectively prevents Harvard from being able to enroll any international students, which, by the way, are 25% or 1 in 4 of Harvard students. And you're hearing this almost June, and it's effective in the fall. This action was part of a broader conflict between Trump and his administration at Harvard over many issues involving campus protests, ideological disputes, compliance, faculty, federal information requests. So what are the reasons the Trump administration used to justify such unprecedented action? Well, the Department of Homeland Security, DHS, led by Kristi Noem, cited several reasons. She said claims that Harvard fostered an environment prompting anti-Semitism, pro-Hamas sentiments, particularly in wake of campus protests following the events in the Middle East. She claims an alleged failure by Harvard to provide requested information about every one of their international students, including their disciplinary records and whether they've participated in a protest before. She says accusations that they collaborated with Chinese Communist Party promoted anti-American ideologies through DEI policies. Now, in a letter to Harvard, Secretary Noem stated that enrolling foreign students is a privilege and it's not a right, that the university's action had led to the revocation of this privilege. Let's talk about Harvard's response and legal action. Harvard strongly contested the administration's actions, labeling them unlawful and retaliatory, to which I agree 100%, by the way. The university filed a lawsuit against the Trump administration, arguing that the revocation violated constitutional protections, including the First Amendment and due process rights. On May 23, 2025, U.S. District Court Judge Allison Burroughs issued a temporary restraining order, halting enforcement of the administration's directive and allowing international students to continue their studies at Harvard while the legal proceedings unfold. Okay. Now, Alan Garber, the 69-year-old new president of Harvard, said that a hearing is scheduled for Thursday to determine whether the restraining order will be extended. Harvard's initial complaint on the matter was filed early Friday and called the order a blatant violation of the First Amendment, Due Process Clause, and the Administrative Procedure Act. So I'm going to read to you what the Harvard Gazette said, which is Harvard's famous school newspaper. The action by the Trump administration is undisguised retaliation and quintessential arbitrary, irrational, and unilateral executive action. The effects on Harvard students, all of its students, will be devastating. Without its international students, Harvard is not Harvard. In a message sent to the community Friday morning, Garber said the university has complied with the government records request to the extent required by law. He condemned Noem order and vowed to fight it. The revocation continues a series of government actions to retaliate against Harvard for our refusal to surrender our academic independence, which is exactly what it is, and refusing to surrender their academic independence, and to submit to federal government's illegal assertion of control over our curriculum, our faculty, and our student body. We condemn this unlawful and unwarranted action. It imperils the futures of thousands of students and scholars across Harvard and serves as a warning to countless others at colleges and universities throughout the country who have come to America to pursue their education and fulfill their dreams. International students at Harvard hail from more than 140 countries. They make up a quarter of the student body. In her letter, Noem said the certificate revocation means Harvard cannot host non-immigrant international students or scholars on an F or J visa for the current year starting in the fall. This means current students in those visa categories have to transfer to other institutions in order to maintain their visa status. The order left researchers, fellows, and students shaken and angry and worried about the implications for the country and the university. Okay, I'm about to butcher her name, but I'm going to try my best. Among them was Eduardo Vasconcelos, a senior from Brazil whose family arrived in Boston hours before the Trump administration issued its order. It's hard to hold back my tears when he heard of Noem's letter, Vasconcelos said. The order from the administration felt like a rejection of the 4 years that I've spent and an attack on the immense work that international students and scholars dedicate to production of knowledge relevant to the U.S. and the world. If the action were to take effect, Vasconcelos, an honors concentrator in government and economics, the country would suffer an immeasurable loss of vitality, intellectual diversity, and an opportunity to do good for the world. He added, the federal administration is harming the capacity of America's oldest institution to serve as a staircase open to all. The horrific decision limits the ability of our institution to help address the world's most pressing challenges, which invariably requires identifying talents and voices from all over the world and bringing them to Harvard. Scott Delaney, an epidemiologist, at the Harvard Chan School, whose research has yielded insights into the effects of air pollution and other environmental hazards, said the action by the Trump administration threatens what should be a source of pride for the nation. The United States is a global leader in health science research because the best researchers from all over the world come here as students. And then they stay and they build careers, he said. I agree 100% with that. I personally work with students and postdocs from at least 5 different countries on research to improve the lives of Americans with Alzheimer's disease. If we kick them out because they were born somewhere else, as the Trump administration is trying to do, then my team simply won't produce as much high-impact research, and the U.S. will lose out on insights and contributions. All of these world-class researchers will take their talents elsewhere. Garber closed his message to the community by directly addressing international students and scholars. You are our classmates and friends, our colleagues and mentors, our partners in this work of this great institution. Thanks to you, we know more and understand more, and our country and our world are more enlightened and more resilient. We will support you, and we will do our utmost to ensure that Harvard remains open to the world. Okay, so what are the broader implications? Well, the autonomy of all colleges is at stake. Also, whether we are going to be an autocratic country is at stake. It's absolutely at stake. People think we can't slip from being a democracy. Look at what's happening. Other colleges do not want to get into a protracted battle with Trump. I've talked about this even last week. I talked about people on my Texas trip saying it's a shame that fear is what is motivating us to do what we're having to do. And his administration. So most are going to go along like Columbia did, or the law firms did, or CBS is doing. Because they're trying to avoid his vengeance. And you can actually understand why. He surrounded himself with a bunch of sycophants and supplicants who do whatever he wants. And he literally ran promising vengeance, saying, I am your retribution. He's also very talented at being a buddy because he's shameless and vindictive. I believe the courts will support Harvard, but that's just my opinion. But the damage is already being done. Hundreds colleges are getting rid of anything they think Trump won't like to avoid being in the crosshairs of a vengeful authoritarian. Trump will eventually be off the national stage. He turned 79 on June 14th. How do I know his birthday? You're like, Stuck, you know the guy's birthday? Well, he's got my brother's birthday to wish my brother's not happy about. So, yeah, that's my brother's birthday and Trump's birthday. But Father Time catches up with all of us, so eventually he'll be off the national stage. But I just have 2 questions that are percolating in my mind. Just how much glass will he break before he exits the national stage? And can Humpty Dumpty ever be put back together again? The question is, once you break Pandora's box, there is another power-crazed billionaire with a Napoleon complex who wants to be the next Putin, or the next Hitler, or the next Castro, or the next Stalin, or the next Viktor Orban, or the next Trump. And once you control the free press and the courts and the Justice Department and the Congress, our imaginations may not even be capable of thinking of what could happen. I mean, go back and study what happened with Hitler. What happened with Hitler was almost unimaginable. So just what world are we leaving to our children and our grandchildren? Now, the opposite view is that Americans can decide they don't like autocracy and dictatorship. It isn't just Harvard. This week, Trump demanded that Apple build their iPhones in America or get a 25% tariff slapped on them in June. This was after he didn't want them building them in China, so they made massive efforts to switch to India. Tech expert Dan Ives says it would cost $3,500 to make an iPhone in America. So Americans could reject authoritarianism and do what we did after Watergate and what we did after World War II, where we intentionally strengthened our laws and made it harder for a Watergate or World War II to happen again. One thing I know, the nation is 250 years old, and we are at the crossroads. The choice is ours. Now, I want to go back to the acceptance rates for a second time and share something else. Friends, remember, it's not the acceptance rate of a college that matters. There are dozens of examples of people who are incredibly successful, didn't even go to college. Bill Gates, founder of Microsoft, net worth $115.9 billion. He founded the Gates Foundation, the most impactful philanthropic organization of our lifetime. Gates Foundation has already given away over $83 billion to save millions of lives through many of their initiatives. He dropped out of Harvard in 1975. Steve Jobs, founder of Apple, he dropped out of Reed College in 1972. Now, I've said the 3 companies that go back and forth with the most market value are Apple and NVIDIA and Microsoft. And here, all of them are being featured because they either have a founder who went to a school with a super high acceptance rate or 2 that dropped out of college. Mark Zuckerberg, one of the 5 or 6 also wealthiest countries companies in the world, or highest market cap. Dropped out of Harvard in 2005. Founded Facebook, now Meta. Michael Dell dropped out of University of Texas at Austin in 1984. Founder of Dell Technologies, another one of the giants in our country. Evan Williams dropped out of the University of Nebraska to found Twitter, junior year. Oprah Winfrey dropped out of Tennessee State to build a media empire, became in the world. Ellen DeGeneres dropped out of University of New Orleans after one semester. Ralph Lauren dropped out of Baruch College after 2 years. Founded Polo, Ralph Lauren. David Geffen dropped out of both University of Texas, Austin, and Brooklyn College, both of them. Founded DreamWorks, SKG, Geffen Records, powerhouse in the music industry. And Larry Ellison, the founder of Oracle, another Fortune 25 company, dropped out twice. He first attended University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign as a pre-med student, but he left after his sophomore year due to the death of his adoptive mother. Subsequently, he enrolled at University of Chicago for one term to study physics and math and dropped out there. Now, Ellison went on to found Oracle in 1977, global leader in data software. Now, I am not encouraging dropping out of college, okay? These are cherry-picked examples, okay? The overwhelming majority of students who drop out regret it. But what I am saying is this: it's not where you go. It's not where you go. It's not where you go. It's what you do when you get there. It's what you do when you get out of there. That is what will determine your career success. And I believe that with every fiber of my being.
And now this week's interview with a special guest.
Friends, John Pollard explains how Franke is distinctive from other honors colleges in the country. John talks about the Honors Village. He talks about a very unique dual degree program Franke offers. Dr. Pollard tells us about 2 very unique majors Franke offers. John talks about their early assurance programs Franke has with the med school and the vet school, and he tells us about the unique peer-to-peer mentoring program that 400 students participate in. John tells us about some more unique programs that are going to be rolled out over the next few years. He talks to us about how Franke handles gen ed courses in a great way. John talks to us about how Franke uniquely gets students involved in research. He talks about unique scholarships for Franke and unique study abroad offerings. He talks to us about the $25 million gift that Bill Franke gave and how it's helped Franke take off. John tells us how the University of Arizona is different from Arizona State and how Franke is different from Barrett, which is Arizona State's honors college. John talks about the admissions criteria to get into Franke, and he talks about the 3 different pathways to get into Franke. Listen and enjoy. Well, let's transition to talk about Franke. How is Franke distinctive within the landscape of honors colleges that are out there?
Yeah, Franke has got some of the things that many of our other honors college friends have, but we have some things that nobody in the country is doing. One thing, first of all, we have an amazing, it's called the Honors Village here. It's amazing living learning community. It houses about 1,050 students, and mostly first-year students, some second and third-year students here. And the community we have here is really, really quite distinctive and unique. We have our own classrooms in here. We have our own media spaces. We have our own dining facility. We have a rec center right here as well. Like literally 50 feet across is a beautiful rec center and wellness center. So the honors living situation here is just really unique in the country. One of the things that really makes Franke unique and distinctive is the degree programs. We have a new dual degree program called the Bachelor of Creative Intelligence and Innovation. It's a dual degree program. What that means is that you can't do it standalone. It has to be paired with another degree. So you could be a psychology and creative intelligence and innovation dual degree, or chemistry, creative intelligence and innovation, or studio arts and creative intelligence and innovation, et cetera. The degree is a partnership with the University of Technology, Sydney. We have the degree here now, and it's about helping students or teaching students how to think differently using sort of systems thinking, complex problem solving skills as applied to real world problems. In each of the classes that the students are in, we have an industry partner that brings real world, that can be a corporate, nonprofit, government agency, that brings real problems to the classroom. And these interdisciplinary teams of students work on these problems in each of the classes all the way up to through the degree. It's what we call a transdisciplinary degree. And there's no other degree program like it in the country, actually, and for sure not in an honors college. So you can see that it's really kind of forward looking, because I think that higher ed has to change over the next 10 years. We can't be just issuing the same types of degrees. This is about future proofing our students, about preparing them for the workforce, for graduate programs, whatever it could be, from medical school to just going straight out into the workforce. The degree program has a capstone experience where you can either do an immersive internship or you can do an entrepreneurial project. We also have a partnership where our students will have the opportunity to travel to Sydney, Australia to take courses there. So it's really unique. We have 2 minors, one minor called Health and Human Values that's exclusive for Franke Honor students. We have a lot of pre-med students here at Franke. And this minor focuses on the borders between the medical sciences and the social sciences, humanities. You know, a medicine now is not just about the science of it. There's a humanistic and social part that's so important to it. And that is a super popular program in the college and really makes students distinctive as when they apply to medical school. And we have a third minor called Future Earth Resilience, which is about exploring the boundaries between human health and global health, like the health of the planet, and are centered around the concept of resilience. So you can see these programs we have: Future Earth Resilience, Health and Human Values, Creative Intelligence and Innovation. They're very different sounding, but we offer these degree programs that are really popular. Also, we have an early assurance program with our medical school, where now we have guaranteed seats. Students can apply in their junior year to they have to be an honor student, Franke honor student, to the medical school. They can get accepted early, and so they have a spot there, which is really fantastic. We also have an early assurance program with the vet school. That's super popular because there are not many vet schools across the country. So students come here exclusively to go to the University of Arizona Veterinary School.
And the acceptance rates are low for those vet schools
Totally.
too. So having a guaranteed path would be really appealing,
Yeah.
both for med school and for vet schools. Yeah.
Yeah. And we also have a program called APNI where students can apply to medical school out of high school and get accepted. And they're part of Franke Honor College as well. So we have these pathways to these early assurance. We're building some more. We're building one for our PhD program for nursing. We're going to be building one for our MBA program. We already kind of have a 3+2 there agreement. So those early assurance programs are also distinctive for us with our degree programs. We also have a peer-to-peer mentoring program in Franke, over 400 students in it, called the Path Mentoring Program. I think it's a model across the country for peer-to-peer mentoring and leadership development program in the country within honors colleges. It's really fantastic, and it's growing. We actually have to hire now to help support its growth. So that's part of that community building aspect of it. Of course, we teach our own honors gen ed courses in honors. So students come in. A lot of times, and this goes out to the parents too. A lot of times your kid will have taken all these AP classes and they'll come in already with a bunch of general education courses. So they'll only have to knock out a couple of them. Well, we have in-house gen ed courses that they can take here, small courses, get those last requirements out of the way, that are really with our fantastic, just award-winning professors in the college. And then I think the other thing that's really distinctive for us is I don't think there's another honors college in the country that gets students involved in undergraduate research right out of the gates like we can. The University of Arizona is a research powerhouse, and we can, if students want to get involved in undergraduate research, the first semester they can. We usually tell students to wait till the second semester to get involved so they kind of get settled in. But we are committed to all of our students getting involved in undergraduate research, creative inquiry. They can be in the business school, they can be in fine arts, they can be in chemistry, they can be in sociology, it doesn't matter. And so working towards that thesis. So I think you combine all those things, the amazing faculty and staff we have here, and the scholarship opportunities we have too for our Franke Honor students, the study abroad scholarship. We have a big study abroad presence. The pandemic really did put a hurt on that for universities, but we're back now. We're sending a bunch of students over this summer to various places all over the world. So I think you combine all those and especially that innovative program like the Creative Intelligence Innovation degree, we're just doing things that no other honors college in the country currently is doing.
That's amazing. Now, I know David Franke gave like $25 million, what, about 5 years ago? How did that transform, the program, and what were you able to do with that significant gift to bolster and make it what it is today?
Yeah, it was, well, first of all, it was Bill Franke, Dave's
Oh,
dad.
Bill.
To clarify,
Oh, okay.
yeah,
Okay.
Dave would love to have written that check, but no, it was,
So there is a Dave, right? I said I read about Dave somewhere, but that Bill.
yeah, Dave Franke is the son of Bill, and he's been a great partner for us. And the Franke family actually is fantastic. They've named the business school at NAU. They named the School of Forestry at the University of Montana. They've done some
Wow.
naming gift at Stanford. They've done a lot in higher ed. They're very committed to higher ed. I think, first of all, any person out there who's a leader, a dean of an honors college who has a named honors college knows the positive impact this has. Any dean who doesn't have a naming gift yet knows, oh man, well, that's what we need to get. And there's two reasons why. Number one's the obvious. First of all, you get an endowment. It doesn't mean that you just suddenly have a war chest with $25 million in there and you can just grab hundreds. That's not how this works, right?
Sure.
So you get an endowment, and that endowment, 95% of the money from our endowment goes towards scholarships. So we're able to award our own class of high-end Franke scholarships, study abroad scholarships. Housing scholarships is huge, because I can talk about how nice our honors village is here, but it's more of the pricier dorms on campus. So housing scholarships is big. Other types of just tuition-based scholarships as well. So we've got all that scholarship support there. And then we've got some programmatic support, some money that I can use to innovate and build out experiences for our students. And so that's all fantastic. But the thing that we really got that was value of it is you get a name and you can build an identity around it. And so now we're known, we're starting to be, our students known as Franke Honor students at the University of Arizona. I mean, I think you look across the country, like, for example, Barrett at ASU, they've done a fantastic job of students know they're going to, they have their identities around Barrett, or Schreier, or, et cetera, Clark at Oregon. So these named honors colleges have these advantages of being able to be distinctive in their identity, and students building an identity around that. And that has got a lot of value. So the naming gift has just been huge for us. And we're lucky that we got it from just a fantastic philanthropic partner in the Franke family.
One question I'm often asked, how is U of A different from ASU? So I'll ask you that in general, and then I'll also ask you, how is Barrett different from Franke?
Okay, so I got to be careful here because
I know you do, but I'm still going to ask it.
All right, let's talk about
you. Told me, I know Tara's your friend.
Yeah, shout out to Tara. She's doing a great job up there. But I will, of course, I will speak about the differences. But let me talk about U of A versus ASU. I think the biggest thing is the size. Mm-hmm. I mean, ASU is twice the size of U of A. It's a distributed campus. We're a comeback campus. And so that's, I think, the biggest difference you're going to see. Now, we do, I think, the level or the quality of research and innovation being done at the U of A is a little bit more better. Now, I know that, but I will tell ASU has had an amazing marketing machine. They've taken the word innovation and branded it, but we might not have branded it, but I'm telling you, the innovation being done here is just amazing. And the student experience here is amazing. But it's really, a lot of it has to do, for the students, at least, the size. We have a better basketball team than they do. Always will. And we, of course,
they have football bragging rights from this last year.
Till next year.
Yeah.
I'm calling my shot. We have better softball. We have better.
I see the rivalry juice coming out here.
That's right. But I think that's the big difference. There's just a different vibe on the campus. So I think that if a person is considering having their kid go to ASU or U of A, you got to come feel the campus and see what feels right to you. I think that's the big thing. ASU's up in Phoenix area, so there's some advantages to being in a really big city, but there's also advantages of being in a smaller town. So I think those are the big differences between the two. But I would say the University of Arizona, I think the quality, we draw some, probably on just maybe because of our size, we draw higher quality students here on average, I would say. The difference between Barrett and Franke, well, again, Barrett is twice the size of Franke. Now, listen, Barrett, they have a fantastic program up there. Tara's doing a great job with that program. But, they're more of a traditional honors college experience. They've got multiple locations. They created a model that's a little bit more siloed than we are. We're a little bit more integrated into the campus, I think. And, there's when you have 8,000 roughly or close to 8,000, that changes what you can do with the students. But, the things I mentioned earlier, like the degree programs and all the packages, no one has that. ASU, Barrett, nobody's got that kind of stuff. So we're distinctive and we're really innovating in the honors education space. And, in part, we can do that because we're maybe a little bit smaller. I don't know. I think it's a real challenge for Tara up there to manage a program that is that large. But I think her program, I think the one up at NAU are both really, really great programs. And I'm biased. I think we're the best in the country. And I think that word's going to get out, is getting out now, is going to get out soon. But yeah, I think that's the main difference between Franke and Barrett.
Talk about the admission criteria for getting into the Honors College. And then are there certain expectations you need to meet in order to stay in?
Yeah, well, I'm glad you brought this up because the price of being, I'm really kind of starting to get more known as Franke, is the number of people applying is going up, and we could be a lot bigger than we are. And we just can't, we don't have the resources, and that's really not the model we want to run. So that means we have to turn students down. And on paper, I will get emails all the time from parents saying, my student got accepted to Barrett, but didn't get accepted to Franke, and they're a 3.9 GPA and all this kind of stuff. And it just turns out we're getting super high quality. I mean, the average GPA unweighted of students applying to Franke this last year was just north of 3.9. But here's the thing. We tell students, when you apply to Franke, we want students who do their research on the Franke Honors College and tell us why you want to be here. Not just how great you are but customize your application to say, this is the program in Franke. I want to be part of that. I could contribute to that community. And that's the kind of student we're looking for here at the Franke Honors College. But by the way, there's 3 ways to enter the Franke Honors College.
Yeah, talk about that.
Yeah, there's the traditional way, which is applying out of high school. And that's where it's the most competitive, actually, because everyone wants in. Then we have students who come in through transfer, and that's through community colleges and stuff like that. And so we have some amazing students that come through that portal. It's a smaller number, but we do have that. And then we have what I'm really proud of is we have this third path we call the current Wildcat, which is students who have been here a semester and want in and apply. And really, they just all they have to do is get a great GPA that first semester. And if they want in, they're in.
What kind of GPA are you looking for?
Well, the minimum GPA to stay in Franke is 3.4. So it was 3.5 when I first came over here, and we lowered it a little bit because we sometimes saw students that were really amazing. We wanted to take the emphasis off the grades a little bit and make it more about the engagement. So we adjusted that down 0.1. But sure. Most of the students who come into our current Wildcat are 4.0s, 3.9s, 3.8s. And they just want the honors experience. They've learned about it. Some of them want to try to move into the honors village when the slot opens. So there's the current Wildcat is another way that we're drawing students into the Franke Honors College.
And if you were to break them down, like what percentage are coming straight out of high school versus the transfer pathway versus the current Wildcat pathway?
I would say if we took 1,000 students in the honors college, 850 came in through the traditional way. About 100 came in through the current Wildcat and maybe 50 through transfer. Mm-hmm. So it's something like that, 85% roughly through the front door.
And as far as what you're looking for, you've already said one thing. You said 2 things, actually. You're going to have a very strong transcript. If the average unweighted GPA is north of 3.9, that gives us a sense of a profile of the student. Can you be test optional? What role did test scores play in the assessment?
We're test optional. And by the way, with the GPA, we accept students with lower than the 3.9. That's the average.
Sure.
It just depends on how involved they are, the rigor of their courses. We take that into consideration. So some students will go to high schools where the courses are more rigorous. And so therefore they're disadvantaged a little bit because they get a little bit lower grades. We take that into account. We also take into account students will come from rural schools where there isn't the opportunity to take AP courses, but they are standouts and have amazing experiences.
Friends, this concludes part 1 of 2 of my interview with John Pollard, Dean of Franke Honors College. Hope you join us next week for the final part. On Thursday's episode, We have a question from Courtney from Connecticut, and Julia would join me to answer it. Courtney's son was told at his high school that certain colleges he's interested in are blacklisting their school, so he need not apply. And Courtney wants to know, do some colleges blacklist high schools and don't admit anyone from their school? Talk to us about that. We have 2 brand new interviews. Linda will interview Jay Hall, an author from Oklahoma. They'll be talking about tips to successfully transition to college so you can have a great first-year experience. And for our spotlight, Lisa will interview Adrienne Amador-Adi, the VP of Enrollment and Strategic Communications at Queen's University in Charlotte. And they will be discussing Queen's University. And I will be talking to Kevin Newton about a recommended resource, a great opportunity he's developed at an affordable price for people interested in exploring international universities. See you on Thursday, friends. And that's our show. A big thank you to you, our listeners, for tuning in this week. If you find this podcast helpful, please follow us and you will get every single episode as soon as they are released. If you want to support our podcast, you can click the share button and send it to your friends and acquaintances. You can say positive things about your college-bound kid on your social media feed. And you can help us stay commercial-free and pay our staff by donating on the yourcollegeboundkid website. You can write a review for us on Apple or Spotify. And if you have a question or a recommendation, just go to speakpipe.com/YCBK, hit the orange button, and speak. We will do our best to get your question in your own voice on an upcoming episode. I am the producer of the podcast, and I live in Metro Atlanta. We have a fantastic team that has over 200 years of admissions and counseling experience. Shout out to our co-hosts, Dr. Lisa Ruff in North Carolina, Susan Tree in Pennsylvania, Vince Garcia in California, Julia Esquivel in Massachusetts, Linda Depker in Missouri, Andy Strickler, the Chief Enrollment Officer at Connecticut College, New London, Connecticut, Hillary Dickman, an Admission Officer at Colorado College in Colorado Springs, and our International Admissions Expert, Kevin Newton in Dallas, Texas. Our sensational sound engineer is Nemanja Motvich. Our amazing music is from Victor Allen Weeks. Marketing designs from Kimberly Bloss. Our reliable webmaster is Stalionis Dimitru. Website updates are done by Joyce Stucker. Our image editor is Vlad Honchar. If you want to have a coaching session with me, just text me at 404-664-4340. If you want to reach someone else on our team, all of our bios with contact info can be found at yourcollegeboundkid.com under the About YCBK tab. If you want to get our free monthly YCBK newsletter, YCBK Plus, it is also under the About YCBK tab. If you want to see our recommended books and websites, they are on our website under the Resources tab. While you're on our website, check out our hundreds of interviews in their entirety. Check out our college spotlights, our blog, and our upcoming events. We think of you as our listening family, and we look forward to meeting with you every single Monday and every single Thursday.